Hello and welcome to part two of the episode with Pavel Feldman. Today we're going to be talking about his experience at McKinsey and his experience of getting into that firm. Let's get it.
Welcome back to CambridgeStocks Part 2.
And now we're going to be building onto our conversation that we had with Pavel earlier, and we're going to speak about his career at McKinsey and Company, and we're going to talk about his transition to human films later on. Pavel, if you can tell us about how you got into the firm, what led you there, and the skill set that you brought with yourself.
Yeah, so my transition to the firm was 2016. Yeah, 2016. I had a very good friend of mine working for the firm. He was a partner there. And I when I came back from New York, which brings us back to the story discussed before, I wasn't planning to go to consultant. You know, we just met with him and we were chatting about what happened in New York. I was telling him a story because when I came back to Moscow, I was trying to catch up with everything that happened for the last 3 years that I missed in Moscow. And I told him about my experience, and I remember him telling me, don't you think that it's the right time to go to the essence of the firm? And I was like, well, sounds cool, huh? But can you tell me more about it? And he was like, sure. McKinsey and Company, by far the most famous and the most effective and just simply the best consulting company in the world. We have we have the best Russian clients, the best international clients, a lot of international experience, and it's purely an international company in very specific understanding of what an international company is. But when you say specific and you talk about McKinsey, it's actually the real definition of an international company. For example, a guy working as an analyst in Moscow is no different to a guy working as an analyst in Sao Paulo. You guys are literally working in the same company, just that today you are during this specific day, you're going to different offices, different buildings. But this is pretty much the only thing that differs you from each other. And he started telling me about the projects they're doing, conceptually. And I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. Well, and obviously I knew what McKinsey was, and obviously I realized the impact the company is bringing to the world. And I was like, well, that would be great, if you can send my CV to recruiting, He was like, yeah, sure, no problem. But then one of my classmates, he's German, he was top of the class. He landed a job in Credit Suisse in Zurich in M&A, and his life was miserable. And he quit his job. He actually didn't quit. So he was finishing his internship in Credit Suisse in M&A, and a friend of his, colleague of his, said during one day, yeah, okay. So the thing was Christmas break, and they all had plans. And his colleague got an email that he had to stay during Christmas in data room, uploading files to the data server, during Christmas. And he had all this trip planned to Paris with his girlfriend, very romantic. These guys are working 100 hours a week. And he got an email. I'm sorry, you have to stay in data room in Zurich and start uploading data. And he said, there is no happiness in this place. He closed his laptop shut it down, left, and never came back. And my friend Philip was like, yeah, okay, this is just demotivated. This is terrible. So guess what? He was the next guy, top of the class, super experienced already by the age of 26. He got an email. Oh, you know what? Your colleague, he quit his job. So you are the guy who is going to be uploading the documents in the data room for Christmas. And he had also, his
Of course.
Hamburg. He was from the north of Germany, sailing and whatever for Christmas and spending time with his family. And he was like, seriously, go fuck yourself. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? But guess what? He stayed. He stayed for Christmas and he spent the New Year's Eve there. It was terrible. And then in 2 weeks, 2 days before they were about to be announced with their offers and everything, and he was obviously getting one, Credit Suisse reported their results and was like a loss of maybe 2 billion euros. So they froze hiring globally. So he got an offer, but was never able to exercise it because the recruiting was frozen all over the world. And he was like, okay, there is no happiness in this place either.
Wow.
Yeah, and he left. And just maybe a couple of days before I met with this friend of mine, he called me and he was like, dude, is there any chance you can ask someone within McKinsey, I know you have friends there, to refer me to Zurich office? I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So after this meeting, when my friend told me, yeah, I'm going to refer you, I said, well, there is also this, he's a very experienced guy. He worked in the pharma industry and he worked in investment banking. He's very good with finance. He's top of the class. He's like, yeah, sure. Like, send me his email over. I'll send it to Zurich office. And I was like, wow, this is really an international company. This is, McKinsey has this, one of the principles they have is called one firm philosophy.
Yep.
And it's no bullshit. It's really working. So what happened after that, I got my invitation for a problem solving task, which is like stage 0 for the interview process. It used to be. Now there is no problem solving task. They changed it for, they call it a game. And the guy, yeah, he got an invitation for interviews in Zurich office, but he was already in the process with another consulting firm from Big 3. And by the time he was supposed to go to the first round interview with McKinsey, he already got an offer, like literally 1 day before, from the competitor. And he texts me, dude, are you okay with me telling them no show for the interview? And I was like, Jesus Christ.
Telling no what?
No show for the first round of interview with McKinsey because he already got an offer from the competitor. And I was like, Jesus Christ, are you really going to do this to me? I asked the guy who was referring myself to the firm, to fucking refer you, a guy he doesn't know from Zurich, to a different office. And the guy's like, yeah, I got an offer from a competitor. I'm probably not coming for the first round interview. And I was like, oh, really? Yeah. So, I got an invitation to PST, problem solving test. I passed it, then 2 rounds of interview, and I just got in.
I mean, it sounds straightforward, but yeah, as long as you get the invitation. And I think people underestimate the test, the PST for McKinsey.
Yeah, that's true. It's no longer there, but okay, yeah, maybe I did make it sound easy. Yeah, obviously, a couple of months. What if we're talking about how to get yourself prepared for the interview? You ask everybody around if you guys have any sort of possible materials for getting ready for the problem solving task, now the game.
Yeah.
But it's really not that much. It's like protection from the fools applying to the firm. To be honest, it's something that you cannot really get prepared for, the problem solving. Yeah, it's difficult. The game is not probably that difficult from what I hear. The most important part is the interviews. You have 2 rounds of interviews. The first one is, well, they are not different to each other, to be honest. Just that the first one is with the engagement managers or the managers and junior partners. The second round is with partners and senior partners. It consists of 2 parts. Fit interview, which is basically, there is this book about case interviews. It's called, Case Interview by Victor Chen. Yeah, and well, it's a pretty crappy book, to be honest. Like, don't you use it in order to get into consulting. But there is this thing they call "Don't be an asshole" test, or an airplane test. Because when you work in consulting, you spend so much time together. You guys have to click. You guys really need to fit each other. So a fit interview is maybe 50% weight. It has 50% weight in in you getting into the firm. And the second part is the case interview. Yeah. So what is really important is that you find your case interview partners. How you find them? Through people you know and through social media. There are lots of pages that are basically the clubs of people getting ready for the interviews. In Moscow, it's even easier. You have groups in social media, and you also, somehow people know that there are 2 places in Moscow that every Sunday, 2 cafes where people come over, and they are, just conducting these mock case interviews. And to be honest, the places are not very efficient, because sometimes people go there just, because they like doing this intellectual work during the weekend. You need to find through this social media, through the people you know, through these clubs in cafes, people who are actually being interviewed. So they have a date appointed already. You know that this guy, and you need to talk to this guy. Oh, really? You have a McKinsey interview? Oh, really? And who invited you? You really need to get into this, that the guy is actually going there and he's not bullshitting you. And you need to find 3, 4, maybe 5 people that you guys are going to be getting prepared with for the interview. And then you need to find all the possible cases around the world. You need to download case books. You need to talk to people who already got into consulting. You need to, find a lot of cases. Very important rule. You need to be an interviewer while you're getting prepared for the interview more times than you are being interviewed by someone else. That's very important. The most important part while you're getting ready for this is to see how other people are solving the cases. It's very important. And the last but not least, you need to find people within the company you're applying to who are already there, who can have, one session, one case session or one fit session. You need to talk to them. You need to be actually mock interviewed by these guys. That brings a lot of values. There is no magic number how many cases you need to solve. A magic number is that you need to, interview more than you were interviewed by. But the magic number of cases, no, it doesn't exist. I know people who solved 2,000 cases. I solved myself 19 cases only. It was enough for me. But there are two things. You can be underprepared, which means that when you come to an interview, they give you a case and you have no idea what the approach of solving the case could be. But there is another thing, which is even worse. You can be over-prepared. You can give a perception to the interviewer that you solved all the cases available, because the number of cases is limited. And it's a real case example that a guy was over-prepared and that the partner was like, okay, he knows how to solve all the cases, but whenever he comes to a real engagement, to a real case while he's working for the firm, he would be like, oh my God, what shall I do? What shall I do? I don't know the framework for this. Because the frameworks, that's why I was telling you earlier that you shouldn't be using Victor Cheng's book, are an actual evil. It's terrible. Every single project is super unique. Yeah, that's something like very high level about the process of getting into consulting and why I ended up in consulting.
Was it at any time, any point when you were preparing, you thought maybe this is not what you want to do?
During now, I was preparing myself for getting into. No. That was a dream job. No, you should be 100% dedicated. That's why I was not being interviewed. I've never applied to any other firm. Well, while I was there, you should be 100% dedicated to this process. It's a very frustrating, very time-consuming, health-consuming, everything-consuming process. You should be focused on this one firm.
Okay, let's go to a bit of a lower level. Potentially help some people who just want to go in consulting, maybe not necessarily McKinsey. If you could tell us if there's a difference between strategy and management consulting.
Yeah, okay. So all this industry is called management consulting because it consists of strategy consulting, which is, well, long story short, you give pieces of advice to executives of what the long-term things are supposed to be, about the company vision and then like where the company is going in terms of sales, in terms of positioning, in terms of blah, blah, blah. Like these are very high level things. Strategy consulting is just a part of management consulting. All this big issue is called management consulting. And it includes strategy consulting and all other projects. So management consulting consists of strategy projects, operations projects, management, marketing and sales projects, HR projects, IT projects, whatever. All this universe is called management consulting. And that's what Big Three consulting is about. You have any type of project you want, obviously.
Yeah, and I guess thanks for that. Another question for interviews as well. When you go into an interview, are you expected to know which industries you're going to be like working on to basically show which industries you're most interested in on, or you don't need? You basically need to show that you have the aptitude and the skills to work on any industry.
So the question is, are you supposed to know what industries you're interested in? Yeah, but that's a simple question. I like media, I don't know, telecom, petroleum, or whatever. That you can say, but this is, something very basic. The real question is, are you supposed to be an expert, or are you supposed to be aware of any industry or when you are applying to consulting? And the short answer is no. And that's one of the beauties of the consulting industry, that when you apply, when you're a young, specialist, you really don't need to know anything about telecom or whatever, like nuclear industry, because the cases they're giving you, they are not industry related. They're common sense, problem solving, whatever related, but you are not supposed to be a nuclear industry expert to solve a case at the interview. And that's the beauty. That's why consulting is a very professionally diverse industry. You don't need a prior experience to get into consulting. You can be a doctor, you can be a chemist, you can be a physicist, you can be a pilot, you can be an aerospace engineer, like whatever.
Yeah, and if the last thing you can tell us about McKinsey, what was the day-to-day like?
70 or 80 years ago, one of the real founder of McKinsey, Marvin Bauer, he said, McKinsey is not a life, but it's so much more than a job, which is a very accurate phrase about what your life is in McKinsey. There are lots of things that people do not understand, I don't know, misinterpret about what the consulting life is. The fact that you have a project job, the fact that you are working on projects means that you are actually involved into different types of things. One of your projects can be operational purely. You find a process that needs to be fixed. You're diagnosing it. You find weak spots and you improve them. Or it can be a headcount project. You just need to find, how many people you need to fire in which function. For example, you start at 9 a.m. every day. Normally your day starts with the check-in. The whole team gathers. The manager is fully aware of all the streams, the work streams on the project. This guy is developing the new products. This guy is doing the customer research. This guy is doing whatever. So, and everyone is like, so today I'm supposed to do this, this, and this, because during the week we have these goals, and these goals. Boom. Then the next guy, you guys start with the check-in. And then you have meetings with the client because you need inputs, because consultant is never an expert in anything. A consultant is a pretty dope work because you're never an expert in anything, but you know so many things about everything. So you guys are meeting with the client, you're discussing things with him. This is how we can do this, and you're getting inputs from him, and then you're making a document. At the end of the day, the output of your work is a big ass PowerPoint presentation, maybe an Excel file like model or whatever, predicting everything you want, some tools that you apply to the client. And that's your end product, But this is a product of a highly intellectual work, which in everyday work you are delivering, which consists of meeting with the clients, problem solving sessions with your manager, with your junior partners, with partners, and with senior partners. That is, everything is reflected in the document. So in the morning you check in, then you meet with a client, you get some inputs from him or her, you create slides, then you do problem solving sessions with the leadership, then you go back, you integrate the comments, then you meet with another client, yada yada, and you do some inputs in the Excel file. That's pretty much how your work looks like, And lots of the times, especially if you're working in the hard industries, you go to the factory, you talk to people there, you're asking, okay, so how does this work? And they're like, the steel making process is like this. And then you're like, oh, really? And why is this guy standing here for 40 minutes doing nothing? He's like, well, I don't know. We've been doing like this for 15 years, so I think it's pretty okay. And then they're like, maybe it's not okay that the guy is standing here doing nothing for 40 minutes, yeah, it's this kind of stuff. But mostly it's meetings, PowerPoint, and Excel. That's what consulting is about. And a lot of intellectual work. A bad thing is that a lot of people think that, okay, slides are for idiots. No, this is bullshit. Slide is just a visual representation of your extremely heavy intellectual work, not only yours, but of the leadership, of the client, of your team, or whatever. Yeah, so...
Yeah, it's a massive collective process that essentially doesn't end as long as you're working there.
Time-wise, I say on average 80 hours per week. You work in consulting, you don't work weekends. Extreme cases, you're working during the weekends, but on average 80 hours per week, which makes it to 16 hours a day. And of course, I've had so many all-nighters in my life. My first project was due diligence in telecom for an M&A deal. That was by far the worst project I've ever had. It was sometimes 1 week was 134 hours in 7 days. I worked all the weekend and then...
Yeah, I remember. How many hours are in a week? You probably know.
Yeah, 168.
Yeah, so that's not a lot of time to eat, sleep, and...
No, but that was a disaster. But on average...
What is it like to function at the highest levels on those kind of sleep hours? How long do you think you can do it for before your body fails?
I don't know. Well, to be honest, on that first project, I had a very, I already had some damage to my health. My eye was collapsed. My right eye was collapsed. Because I'm wearing contact lenses, and that was pretty terrible, to be honest. Well,
collapsed like it went like inside?
No, but it was like swollen, like this.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I say, and that works for investment banking as well, anything prior to 72 hours, it's okay-ish. Anything after that, it's a disaster. Especially if we're talking 5 days a week, because investment bankers, they work in 6 hours a week. And
6 days. 6 days.
Huh?
Yeah. 6 days. 6 days.
Yeah, 6 days. And 72 hours in 6 days is 12 hours a day. 72 for 5 days, it's over 14 hours a day, and that's a disaster. It is a disaster. But when I say, I say 80 hours on average in consulting, you don't feel that way because it's pretty much the same, If you start working at 9 a.m. and you finish at 9 p.m. and you are like purely exhausted because your work was pretty hard. It's not like, okay, I'm free at 9 p.m. I'm going to go party now. No, you just go home and sleep.
Yeah, you go home and sleep and you're still thinking about the work. It's pretty difficult to get it out.
Exactly. 12 hours, 16 hours, it's the same. It's not like you're going out or whatever. During the work week, you guys are, all about the work.
Once again, thank you so much for watching the episode. I hope you have enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode if you found this useful. And I'll see you guys at the next episode of the CambridgeStocks podcast.